Hey, everybody. Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity. Wow. When I get to talk to an icon from my youth, somebody that I heard on the radio countless times, it's always a very special thrill for me. And regardless who it is, the fact that would hear their voices countless times on the radio, and I had to listen to the radio because I couldn't afford a lot of records when I was a kid. I had a few, but not a lot. The radio was very special to me. We didn't have play on demand like we do now, like we do on the different streaming services. We had to wait for the song. So, you young ones listening to this, you probably have no clue what I'm talking about. But one of those great voices who sang great songs, soothing songs, songs that made you just smile was Melissa Manchester. And she had great songs like Don't Cry Out Loud and You Should Hear How She's Talking About You, bunch of others, but probably the biggest one was her first big hit, which was Midnight Blue. And she's re-recorded those songs, but especially Midnight Blue, with one of my favorite artists, and that's Dolly Parton. It's a great duet. I'll have the video of it on the website page, and you can look it up on YouTube and elsewhere. But I got the chance to talk to Melissa about this new album of covers of her own music and the stories behind some of those songs and how all this album come together. It was wow. It was just great to talk to her and to have a one-on-one conversation with this great woman who wrote so many and performed so many songs that just lit up our lives as we were growing up. So I hope I get to talk to her more in the future. And but if I don't, this one time was a big thrill. So I hope you would enjoy the interview. I hope you like it. Press the like button if you don't mind. Please subscribe to whatever platform you're watching or listening to this from. And please share it with your friends because I think they'll like it too. So, without any further ado, here's my first interview with the lovely, the talented Melissa Manchester. And until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. Thank you for joining me today. What a thrill and pleasure it is for me.
Thank you very much.
Where are you dialing in from?
I'm in Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. That's I wasn't expecting that answer. I figured it was New York or something. So
No, we're on tour, so that's just a stop along the way.
oh, good deal. Good deal. Well, I'm in Sevierville, Tennessee, which I'm just a mile and a half up the road from the entrance to the park with your friend's namesake on there, Dolly Parton, Dollywood.
Oh,
So
great.
I'm just right up the road from there. So we'll
Great.
talk about that in just a moment. But
Sure.
I want to first of all thank you also for 50 years of great music on the
Uh,
soundtrack of my life because
Thank you very
wow,
much.
all over it, man. I mean, some great ones. And you've worked with so many great people, wrote some
Thank
great
you.
songs. And did you ever think you would be at this point over 50 years later talking about it all? What did you think 50 something years ago?
I don't think that I ever attached a number to a career. I just wanted a deeply interesting creative life. And that's what I've been gifted with and blessed with. And it's remarkable that here it is, and it's remarkable that I'm celebrating it in this most unusual way. And I'm delighted that Review has finally been released.
Well, good. How long was it in the making from the time you
It
started till now?
well, we started recording quite a bit of it before the pandemic,
Uh-huh.
and I recorded it at, Citrus College, which is a community college in Glendora, California,
Mhm.
where I've been artist in residence for several years. They have a smoke and music department, but once the pandemic started, everything shut down,
Mhm.
and so there was nothing to do, so I started creating videos to go with the songs that I had already recorded
Mhm.
and release those, once every several months because nobody was going anywhere. And then once everything lifted, then, we ramped up the speed of finishing it up and recording with Kenny Loggins and then with Sweet Dolly Parton were the icing on the cake.
I bet. Gosh, I was when the publicist sent me the information, I was like, "Holy cow, this is
Me
man."
too. Even I can't believe it.
Well, I mean, since I'm a little partial to Ms. Parton, and she is she's the patron saint of Sevierville here. Tell us, locals as well as those that'll watch this all over the world, how did you and Dolly get together? How did this whole thing come about with you guys doing this duet and the video?
Well, I had originally recorded Whenever I Call You Friend, which I wrote with Kenny Loggins,
Hmm.
and I thought it would be fantastic to sing this with another woman. Uh, and I got the track to her people, and she emailed me right back, and she said, "I think this is fantastic, but it's too hard for me to learn the harmonies and all of the moving parts." She said, "Can you find something else for us to sing? Because I'd love to be part of your project." And, um, and I thought, "What else? What else?" And then I thought, "Midnight Blue," which has never been a duet. And I thought, that would be so touching because it would underscore the tenderness of the song.
Hmm.
And I did all the vocal parts. I sent her the track, of course. She got right back to me. She said, "I'm in."
All right.
And we, and then she put her vocal part on. I tell you, it was so gorgeous and so singular that it drove me to go back into the studio and redo my vocal part to meet her emotionally. It was just she just you know.
Yeah.
So then we all came down to Nashville to shoot the video, and, she's remarkable in so many ways.
Hmm.
But I must tell you, when, we only had 4 hours with her, which is not a long time, but she had just come from doing her first video shoot of the day. We were her second, and then she was going off to her third video shoot of the day.
My
Yeah,
goodness.
she's a tank.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the last shot of the video, we're in the back of an old Mustang. My videographer was in the front seat with his camera facing, us in the back. And we were just gonna drive around the block, around the block, around the block, and back into the parking lot where the studio was. Well, and it was a convertible top, which was down. So we're driving on Music Row, and a tour bus comes by, and they see her, and people are dripping out of the windows screaming, "Dolly, Dolly,"
Oh
and
my
somebody else
goodness.
just pulls over their car and yells out of the window, "Dolly." She's a true queen. I mean, that's
Hmm.
just all that there is. She is, besides being a consummate musician and a consummate professional, she is so beloved. Her philanthropic heart is
Hmm.
so magnificent. I mean, she's really, really astounding, really astounding.
A class act all the way too.
Yes.
I interviewed her. I was part of a gaggle a group phone interview, and I was like
Yeah.
the second person to ask the question. And it was all in support of her imagination library, which is
Mhm.
near and dear to my heart. My mom instilled in my sister and I to read a lot, and our maternal grandfather, my maternal grandfather was he wasn't illiterate, but he was close to it. He was, fifth grade education in the
Uh-huh.
East Tennessee here, and so that work that she does in memory of her father, I just think is
It's
the
it's
great.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's astounding. It's astounding. It's the bedrock of a democracy.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it's just incredible. So anyway, it was a joy, and we got to I will share this with you because it's so precious. I said, "Do you ever think of," because it's my 50th year, it's her 50-something year. I said, "Do you ever think of retiring?" She said, "I've been working since I'm 10 years old. I met my husband the second day I was in Nashville." She said, "I just like to work." She said, "I have musician friends that have retired. It never works out well for them." And that's the answer. That's
That
exactly right.
well, when you're doing what you love, they say it's really not work, right? So,
Yeah.
so I'm curious. I've been trying to put together a little thing, and maybe I think your any of your songs would fit well with this. And I want to get back with the album, but in the album, and my question will kind of overlay here. you've written some and recorded some phenomenal songs, like I said, that are part of the soundtrack of my life, at least, and I know millions of others. Are there any special stories you have about any of those songs of, say, a fan story or something that really that is just very unique, very special that maybe a fan has shared with you or something you experienced tied to any of those songs?
Thank you for asking that. I'll give you an answer and try to think of a singular one at the same time. The thing about songwriting in particular, as my beautiful friend Beth Nielsen Chapman said to me, you're facing a piece of paper she calls the great white. And you never know what it's going to be. You never know if it's going to have big wings or little wings or be wingless. You never know how it may affect people. And that is the unexpected gift because honestly, I've always loved songs, but I've come to understand that when you write a song, you are creating a world that simply did not exist before you creating it. It
Mm,
didn't exist. And in 3 minutes and 40 seconds or 4 minutes, you are creating a vehicle by which the listener can project whatever they're going through, and it will either illuminate or elevate or educate or save their life or help them decide not to commit suicide or help them to make a baby or serenade them down the bridal aisle. I mean, it's astounding, and it's all of that I've heard over and over through the years, that my songs, because at the beginning of my career, I mean, I was the same age as college students. So it, I would be told very often that my songs would help young people get through rough times, rough relationships, rough families, or whatever. And honestly, that is the unexpected gift of all of this. That as my shadows deepen, that I have such reverence for and gratitude for and never take for granted. You know, sometimes you'll hear of a concert where an artist will say, I'm really bored singing this song, but I know you paid to come hear it. And I'm thinking, how does that work?
yeah.
My songs they have become living monologues for me. And I'm so grateful for the gift, the composition, the structure, the breath, and the life that I can infuse them with because I've lived longer.
Right.
And so it is, I never get tired singing any of my songs.
Well, when the songs are personal and they're written from the heart and not some conjured up story or anything, I mean, it also, from a fan watching the artist, I realize that there's such vulnerability in that kind of transparency, and that's
Yes.
going to be a little scary, I would imagine, especially if everybody's going to hum the tune to it. It's like,
Well, the
"Whoa."
thing is that the thing is that the audience doesn't realize that they are performing for you. And if you can make them feel safe, you see them lean in.
Oh,
And it is a beautiful shared communal experience. It's mystical, spiritual. It's
mhm.
remarkable.
Cool. And working on this album, and I know the pandemic kind of interrupted that a bit, but were there any surprises in the making of this? And especially with reaching into your catalog and all that, some people might think, "Oh, it's predictable, whatever." What kind of surprises did you run into?
Well, thank you for asking that question. There, the unexpected surprises were that many of these songs grew into that moment of the pandemic.
Hmm.
When I recorded Don't Cry Out Loud and I made the video to accompany it, the planet had shut down. Every venue had shut down. All the ancillary businesses, restaurants, florist shops, everything had shut down. And so the message of Don't Cry Out Loud with that video was just sort of startling. A song that Carol Sager and I had written a long time ago called Just You and I, that the great Gerald Albright is playing sax on.
Hmm.
It it became, when we first wrote it, it was about the burgeoning women's movement in the early 1970s. Well, in recording it in that moment during the pandemic, it was my homage to all of the marginalized workers who became essential workers.
Mhm.
The nurses and pizza delivery people and postal workers who kept us glued together as this community in isolation. And that kind of context reframing was just astounding to see, and I've captured it. If you When this is all over, if you look at all the videos which are up on my website on
Mhm.
Facebook, and you will follow the journey of what it was like to get through part of the pandemic, and then the other side, which is that we've, thankfully come out of it, and COVID is now just like a bad flu. But yeah, it was very, very interesting.
What, as I keep telling artists, I learned early on not to ask what your favorite song is because that's like picking your favorite child, and us parents really aren't supposed to do that, are we? So,
No, no.
which song would you point to on this album as being your calling card for the whole album?
Uh, I think Midnight Blue. I've always had a tenderness for that song. I
Mhm.
mean, I love all the songs. I mean, Coming from the Rain is very important, and Just Too Many People. Again, everything, because they've been re-recorded currently with with current insight and life experience, these songs are new to me,
Mhm.
and there's some harmonic tweaks. But the thing about Midnight Blue, and I felt this the longer I sung it, is that I don't know how Carol Sager and I knew this when we wrote this such a long time ago, but there's a certain suggestion of weariness in
Yeah,
the story of it.
I get that. Yeah.
And to sing this song now, so many decades later, the weariness is confirmed.
Yeah. You
It's not just
predicted it.
yeah. I mean, it's not just the weariness of young women in young marriages trying to navigate a snag with their young husbands at the time. It's now having lived long enough to open the song to a broader meaning, a broader
Mhm.
world, a broader lived experience. And I find that particularly tender and particularly touching.
Cool. Uh, Shifting over to the industry, you've been around it long enough to see a lot of changes.
Oh, yes.
What are your thoughts as to what are the best and worst changes you've seen in the industry? And I'll piggyback onto that. If you were made music czar, whoever has the power to do that, um, they make you music czar, and you say, "Hey, you know, fix the music industry." Do you think it's broken? And if so, what would you do to fix it?
Wow. Well, I learned a lot about music these days once I started teaching. I was adjunct professor at USC Thornton School of Music for about 5 years. And now I teach a master class if I'm at a performing arts center on a college campus. They
Right.
usually ask me to meet up with young singer-songwriters the night before. And the thing is that when when I started teaching, time started to become very fluid for me in that I remember what it was like being 17, 18, 21, 23. I remember the beginning of my career. That that uh, part of the spirit never gets older. The spirit just wants to play. It doesn't care how that it doesn't know what 50 years means. It just wants to
Right.
play and
The
express
body
itself.
reminds us, though. So,
But the body is such limited knowledge.
yeah, true.
The spirit is so much more interesting because it's got that insatiable curiosity, and that's
Right.
that's thrilling. So so the thing about being around young singer-songwriters is that the beginning is always the same. You know, you have that desperation to be liked, be accepted, be successful, if that's important to you. Find the purpose of your songs, if that's what's important to you. And I found that my job as a teacher was to simply help them think, because at 21, 23, no matter how much you have lived, there are just open spaces in the mind.
Hmm.
And when you are talking about writing, you want to help them think about creating this completed voice, this completed composition, this living monologue, if that's important to them. I had the great opportunity to study songwriting with Paul Simon when I was 17 years old.
I remember reading.
And and I teach a lot of what he taught me because it was the nugget, you know?
Hmm.
He said, all stories have been told. It is the way you tell your story that separates you out.
Wow.
And that is what I am always in pursuit of for myself and for my students. They don't know that idea yet, but when I share that with them, there's a lot of, oh, okay. So it's, you know, it's finding your own language, it's finding your own choral structure. Um, it, and, you know, songs that are often successful are often simple, but simple is not easy.
That's right.
It's an illusion. So, and how would I fix? Well, it's an entirely different landscape than what I grew up with. You know, the conventional wisdom when I was starting in the early 70s was get yourself a record contract. And for most artists, and particularly for women, um, it was be very successful and then you'll have the power. Yeah. And that was interesting. But you were, you know, but as a woman, I was always in the room, a room full of men,
Right.
and you couldn't help but be objectified. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
And then I saw the transition because I started in the beginning, this sort of the second wave of the singer-songwriter, and then disco started to insinuate itself. And how that changed making records because then electronics were the fun toys for the producers and the producers became the star.
Yeah.
And then really anybody could sing on those tracks. And it was a very odd moment. And then I just outlasted everybody.
And
And now
thankfully,
I'm the president. Yeah, now I'm the president and executive producer, and I make the music that I love.
there you go. That's the true freedom, isn't it?
I think so.
So what are your plans for 2024? What's on your agenda?
I am in the midst of being on the national tour of Funny Girl, the musical. This is the
Mm.
first national tour in 60 years, so it's quite the historical event.
Wow.
And it has been a lovely way to reconnect with my fans by going from city to city to city with this gorgeous musical, um, and a fabulous cast of 30. I mean, it's a big production and a full pit of musicians, and I play Mrs. Rose Bryce. I play the mother of Fanny Bryce. This is, of course, the musical that made Barbara Streisand very famous, but
Right.
it's never been done before. So it's already been extended well into 2025,
Wow.
and so it's just thrilling to feel like an honored guest at a fabulous party.
So I'm going to ask a question I know you've been asked a million times, but I think it's an important question because I think that people's answers change, and especially as we get older. I'm in my 65th year now, and it certainly becomes more relevant to me. But when this life's over, how do you want to be remembered, and what do you hope your legacy is?
It's a good question. It's a hard one.
What do you want that spirit in you to be doing?
Oh, she'll just be playing. She'll just
Good.
be playing, yes, in her perfect light. Um, I hope that I hope that I hope that my songs find their way in the hearts of new generations. I don't know that they will, um, but I think I think that the legacy for me, this may sound small-ish, but I've had a splendid life.
Mhm.
Hard, because the life of an artist is not for the faint of heart. The
Mhm.
life of an artist is unsteady and unsecure and unsafe and sometimes insane. But I've lived a life where I've made a life by how I live, and that's so unusual. Um, it's sort of the way I was raised. My parents were both the black sheep of their family. My father played bassoon in the orchestra of the Metropolitan Opera. My mother was a pioneer in the fashion industry, and so they just told my sister and I to start dreaming and see how that works out. And music was always in it for me. I mean, I heard Ella Fitzgerald for the first time when I was 5, and I thought to myself, "I don't know what you're singing about, but I will be following you." And, because her voice was just I don't know. So, I think I think that's the legacy. I I hope I've made amends for anybody I need to make amends to, but I'm grateful that I've been able to have a splendid life.
Well, and your life has touched so many others, and mine especially. Lots of years, lots of nights laying in bed listening to the radio,
Mm,
midnight blue comes along and it
mhm.
just chills you. I don't care what kind of day you're having, to lay in bed late at night and decompressing, and that song comes on, does the trick every time. And just or you could be in the middle of the day and hear it, and if everything's spun up, it just brings it down to a nice calm level. So thank you for that. Thank you for everything you've done again for the soundtrack of our lives, and wish you much success with this tour. And you going to be doing any music tours at all?
Oh, for sure.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
This just showed up as an unusual way to celebrate my 50th year. I thought, say yes.
Yeah.
So, but
um,
yes, I will be
cool.
doing
Well,
concerts and
I'll
all.
watch your itinerary, and if you get into Dolly's neck of the woods, I'll see if I can look you up, and we can say hi to each other face to face.
Absolutely.
That'd be a lot
Absolutely.
of fun. Well, Melissa, thanks a million. It's been a thrill and an honor to talk to you after all these years. And
Thank you.
let my door's always open to you. If you have another project coming up that you want to plug, let's talk. Let's do one of these.
Thank you very much.
All right. Be
Thanks.
safe and healthy. Okay.
All right. Be
Take
well.
care.
Thank you.
Bye bye.